I also want to thank security for ensuring that everyone can hear different opinions in a safe environment. No thanks, however, to some folks on the left who insist that the university should have canceled this speech. A particular no thanks to the UBC AMS, who are apparently very concerned that my talk will, quote, stoke intolerance and discrimination based on race, gender identity, and sexual orientation. They say that they fear that some students at UBC will feel threatened and targeted by my message. And then they follow that up by saying that they denounce all forms of violence and marginalization on campus, presumably not including marginalization of a mainstream conservative worldview. They're okay with that sort of marginalization. I have never, it should be noted, never called for incivility. I have never called for violence. But that doesn't stop anybody from accusing conservatives of doing exactly that. Stating facts, stating conservative opinions, that is not threatening. And if you believe that it is threatening, I have two words for you: grow up. This is still a somewhat free society in which we all get to exchange viewpoints without running to the fainting couches. Now, I agree with the AMS that folks who wish to peacefully protest should do so. It'd be even better if they would come inside and then ask questions. As you heard right beforehand, we have a long Q&A session. It's my favorite part of the evening, and I always urge folks who disagree to go right to the front of the line so we can actually have some civil, nice conversation, discussion about issues that matter. But instead, the AMS is preemptively referring people to places like the Sexual Assault Support Center. Now, there are a lot of black marks on my resume, probably, but I do have a fairly clean record when it comes to sexually assaulting people. When I say fairly clean, I mean like spotless record when it comes to sexually assaulting people. So I don't think anyone's going to need to go to the Sexual Assault Support Center tonight. They say that people should go to Speakeasy, which I guess is for peer support and guidance in a safe space of non-judgment. I admit that this is not going to be a safe space in the sense that they mean it, since they mean safe from having your feelings hurt, and I believe that safety exists in a free country when you're allowed to express your opinion. They're also directing folks to Safe Walk, which is a transportation service accompanying students walking after dark. So, I don't know what they think I'm doing after this. Implements the BC Human Rights Code, which is as foolish and overbroad a piece of legislation as has been promulgated in a purportedly free society. For folks who don't know, BC's Human Rights Code states a person must not publish, issue, or display, or cause to be published, issued, or displayed any statement, publication, notice, sign, symbol, emblem, or other representation that indicates discrimination or an intention to discriminate against a person or a group or class of persons, or is likely to expose a person or a group or class of persons to hatred or contempt because of race, color, ancestry, place of origin, religion, marital status, family status, physical or mental disability, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or age of the person or that group or class of persons. No one is in favor of hateful speech, but this policy simply defines as hateful anything which is quote-unquote likely to expose people to hatred and contempt, which is utterly subjective. Now they say that what they really mean is anything that would be a reasonable person would assess as likely to expose people to hatred or contempt. Unfortunately, the people who are going to interpret that law are all members of the political left who will determine that it is reasonably likely that any sort of conservative speech may in fact be likely to provoke bad action on the part of people who agree with the conservative. This is why in the United States, which I'm an American, so I get to say it, I believe is a superior country to your own. Okay. Making friends and influencing people everywhere I go. In the United States, we don't have such laws because such laws are violative of basic precepts of the First Amendment. Free speech precepts. We understand there's such a thing as hateful speech in the United States, but we also understand that the definition of something like hate speech is endlessly malleable and can be used by people in power to simply quash people with whom they disagree. In fact, the UBC policy goes further than the BC Human Rights Code. It actually bans activities harmful to a respectful environment, which is an amazing statement. These range from expressions of disrespect, such as rudeness and gossip. I mean, have they ever been on a college campus? To bullying or harassment, and then they define harassment as intentional or unintentional, which includes ostracism or exclusion of a person that undermines an individual's self-esteem. We must never undermine anyone's self-esteem. Deeply imperative. Again, this is rather overbroad. Speech codes do not end well for freedom of speech as a general rule, and free people are going to have to grow a thicker skin. Again, this doesn't mean you should be uncivil. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a virtuous person. But when you start setting standards like no one must be offended, no one's self-esteem must be damaged, you are in for So tonight, here is my plan. I'm going to say a bunch of things that I think are simply facts, and then I'm going to state some conservative opinions, and we'll see if I get arrested. So here we go. You ready? This is a fact. There are two, count them, two sexes. Two of them, not three. Not three, not nine, not infinite. I know, horrifying. Women are women, men are men. Men cannot become women because we don't live in a magical land in which men can become women or vice versa. Men who believe they are women are not biological women. Transgender women are not women. They are biological men with a mental disorder. There are two sexes. People with a Y chromosome are almost universally male. People without a Y chromosome are almost universally female. The only reason I say almost is because there do exist tiny variations in the population with gender disorders, sexual developmental disorders. These folks are intersex. They may have primary or secondary sexual characteristics that do not match the presence of a Y chromosome. These are called genetic abnormalities. And this does not mean that there is a third phantom sex that exists somewhere out there. Why? Because the promulgation of our entire species is based on sexual dimorphism. The fact that folks are willing to completely subsume biology under the rubric of political correctness is complete idiocy and anti-objective truth. And indeed, it turns out the transgender advocates claim that no evidence must actually be shown of intersex genetics. That's just a red herring. When they say that folks are transgender, they don't mean the person's intersex. They mean that a person who is fully biologically male, who believes that he is female, is actually a female. In order to achieve this particularly nonsensical combination, both in terms of biology and logic, transgender civil rights advocates create a new category from sex, and this they call gender. Now, gender, in this view, is about maleness or femaleness. That's an entirely subjective category, not linked to biology. It's a social construct. It's not linked in any way to biology.